Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we talk about real Canadian rugby. I'm Stu Hardy, joined as always by Derek Brissett. Derek, we've had a lot of rugby this weekend, especially Canadian rugby, because not only have we had the Arrows game, we also had the women take part in a match against South Africa in Spain, of all places.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the URC has taught us anything, is that South Africa is a part of Europe, so it all makes sense when you really think about it. Yeah, lots of great. Obviously, it's a big Canadian rugby weekend, man. There was you said the Arrows, and we'll dive into that. That's there's a lot to talk about with that game and everything surrounding the game, and then obviously the women got off to a brilliant start on their European tour, going in, heading into a couple bigger matches coming up later this month. And the Six Nations is over, so the Saracens got all the big boys back, and they're back to winning, slaughtering the Harlequins at Tottenham Hotspur's stadium. So that was it's a good solid overall rugby weekend, even if it ended with lightning and a rain delay, which was very unusual. But hey, congrats to Seattle on getting the quick work win there.
Yeah, indeed. Right, let's get into the MLR games of the weekend. And of course, we are starting with the Arrows game, which was against Utah. And even before the whistle blew for kickoff, there was some issues to talk about. Oh, injury issues to talk about.
Okay, so we just talk about the lineup. Like, how do we do this? Do we go chronological order of like the whole injury situation? Because that's really is the story of the game.
Yeah, I think we need to talk about it. We need to talk about like the issues that have been plaguing this team at the moment.
Yeah.
So let me just start off. Like before we begin, 10 players were on the injury list. 9 of them have been starters for the Arrows this season. The only exception is that of Shane O'Leary, who's himself only played one game and been unavailable for the others.
And we've spent the other podcast talking about how he should start.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. We said he should start if he's fit enough to start, which he isn't. So, okay. So, we then have the lineup. And the interesting thing we see is Mitch Eadie has been moved to center, so for the first time in his career. And we have basically every remaining Arrow, with the exception of Connor Grindle and Nick Hildebrand, have been on the flight to Utah to take on the Warriors. Then, again, this is before the whistle has even been blown for kickoff. Yeah. So we have the starting 15, and then we have the bench, which only has 2 backs and 6 forwards. We discover that Adrian Wadden is now no longer available. Jack McRogers is no longer available. And Will Grant is no longer available. So this leaves the bench with 4 forwards and 1 back. And again, this is before kickoff. This is before anything has happened. So we now, instead of having a bench of 8, there's a bench of 5.
And this is also after calling up Brendan Black and Hank Stevenson.
Yeah,
the High Performance Academy.
Yeah, Black going straight in to fullback in his MLR debut, the youngest ever MLR player to start surpassing that of his winger, Kobe Faust. Yeah. Anyway, so we get to the first half, and during which Ayaza and Flesh get injured, and this forces Stevenson and Simonton to enter the game. So this leaves the bench with 2 forwards and 1 back. Now, this is a case of swings and roundabouts because, yes, Simonton does have to come into the game far earlier. However, he scores a try. So, take the good with the bad. So the subs for the second half for O'Donnell and Salmon and Grant. So that leaves, of the starting 15, 10 players will have to contest the full 80 minutes instead of the usual 7. The only change in the back is for Ross Brody. And again, one of the centers isn't even a center.
Well, Yeah, because it's like the back line in this game, like you said, you have a center that's actually a forward. Then you have Brendan Black, who just got the pure trial by fire.
Yeah.
Um, Throw you out into the deep end and see if you swim. And to be honest, for the most part, I do think he did swim in this game.
Yeah, I think he was spectacular. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, no, he
for
was
the
really,
circumstances given, he
yeah,
he was there, he was in for the fight and stuff. And obviously, it's not like Black and Stevenson have just been plucked out. These guys have been training with the
oh yeah, no,
Arab
it's
squad on the
they
regular,
earned
so
it.
they are
Like,
definitely
yeah, but
you know
with I think even with that, like with Black, Oideman, and Faust too, like you have three of the younger arrows and a
yeah
forward as in the back line, right? So there's a bit of that kind of inexperience, and
yeah
it's obviously a very makeshift back line and stuff too, but
yeah
wild. And then yeah, one sub for all of them.
yeah. So when you hear those injuries and you see who you're up against, like the Utah Warriors, known for their physicality, known for their ability to win games at the death. You can kind of see where the result is going. But if you watch the game, Utah, yes, they were the first team to score from a penalty, but the Arrows were the first team to get a try. The Arrows even led at halftime. They even led at the 60-minute mark, or just after the 60-minute mark, with the try from Brody coming in, complementing Faleva and Simonton's tries to, lead the game 18-19. But this is the thing. When you have a bench of only 5 players and only one of the backs can change and the remaining forwards, of which there are only 2, can come on,
Yeah.
you get tired pretty quickly. And when you get tired, you get slow. And when you get slow, you can't catch some of the fastest wingers and centers in MLR. So the 60-minute score was Toronto 19, Utah 18. The full-time score, Utah 47, Toronto 19. So that was a very painful 20 minutes
It's not
conclude.
even 20 minutes if you really think of it. It was 16. It was because Brody's try is, we keep saying it's like, the hour mark, but Brody's try was really the 63rd minute. And then Lasike scored about a minute and a half after that.
Yeah.
And then from what is it, the 69th minute to like the 71st minute, just the floodgates just completely open. There was the 2 crossfield kicks. Mono had his Superman dive in the corner. Mika Cruze had the nastiest one, but probably the try of the year right now, with that nasty one-handed catch and then the dive in the corner too. Just absolutely exploded, man. It was the last 15 minutes was but they had 5 tries in the last 15, 16 minutes of the game.
Yeah. So, not great.
Not ideal. No.
But I will give credit where it's due. First of all, got to shout out Mitch Eady. Got to shout out the call-ups like Hank Stevenson, Brendan Black, Owen Rattan, even as well. He getting his I think his first start in MLR as well.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for Edie is like definitely out of his comfort zone. Black Stevenson, as you said, trial by fire. Return, he had a bit of time against DC last week, and so he was brought in for starting. But yeah, I think those guys is exceptional. Edie's break was fantastic to watch, and then offloaded it to Black, and then into the hands of Faust, and then just too many players getting in the way to be able to ground the ball, so became a goal line dropout. I think that I think that was just after Faleva's try. And the thing is, with Faleva, they had was it 3 or 4 guys on him, and he was like, "Nah, you need more, ground the ball."
Yeah.
So as soon as anyone else came to the try line, it's like, yeah, we're not doing that again. We're going at least 3 guys on this person to prevent a try being scored. Then
I think you need more. You need to send more guys to stop him. Like Faleva is like he's the juggernaut. It's like once he gets his momentum building, like you're probably better off just getting out of the way at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well is that I'll say the score is forgivable considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
The issue that I have, and I think it's because we know what this team is capable of. I mean, they were leading at halftime, considering all the injuries that happened up from the team being announced until the halftime whistle was blown.
Yeah,
is that these guys know that they could have left Utah with a try bonus point, and
probably. Maybe
it seems to me as though that, and again, I understand it's a high pressure environment for a lot of these guys. They're starting for the first time, or they're in new positions, and they're in the team's in a different structure to what they originally had at the start of the season. You got to make sure that this guy's able to keep up with you in this environment. But there are some instances where you're just thinking like, I can't really excuse that. And and just for example, is like Rumble running onto the ball, with like a clear line for the try and then knocking it on, or Sam Malcolm not kicking 10 meters on the restart, and it's those kind of careless errors. And I'm pretty sure I've given like errors that are only in the second half, but everything from up until that 60th minute, up until that try by Brody, there was opportunities there for the Arrows to score. And I think that it was just a lot of careless errors costing them. It's like handling errors that were leading to knockout. Now, it's not to say this is just the Arrows, because clearly the Utah Warriors also had handling errors as well. But it sometimes feels as though that calm and collected mentality that is a virtue for both players and team wasn't there. And it's the inability of the players to keep their heads in the game is what is costing the Arrows vital table points at the moment.
It's been a little bit of a talking point that we've had the whole year, is the Arrows execution inside the 22.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice this game because they scored 3 tries off of possessions inside the 22, right? Obviously, Faliva's try, it was, there was a few nice runs there. Ayarza, Shepard, and Faust had Faust was first, and then it was Ayarza, then Shepard, and that was off the back of a scrum that was on the 22-meter line, right? So it's like that was great. Faliva, as we said, juggernaut run, barreling over Utah defenders, right? They probably need to send 8 guys next time. But so like that was nice. Simonton scored a try right after the yellow card. Simonton scores a try off a line-out maul. That's the first time the Arrows have done that all year. That was great to see. Similarly, there was a line out deep inside Utah territory. The forwards work through some phases. They draw a penalty. Brody gets a quick tap and scores a try. Right. Yeah. So it's like all 3 of those tries are coming off of something that the Arrows haven't really shown this year. So that was great to see. And obviously they doubled their try total on the year. Right. So it was nice to see that element of the offense kind of, of the attack kind of get going. That being said, there's probably a couple more opportunities that they could have had. There was still, I think this game was, for the most part, incredibly even. And I agree with your point of like the final scoreline probably doesn't really reflect how this game looked. I think both teams got some shots in at the set piece. Utah would win some scrum penalties. The Arrows would hit back and get some scrum penalties on their own. Toronto would get a line-out steal. Utah hit them back with a couple line-out steals of their own. Unfortunately, I think the Arrows may have had 1 or 2 of those missed lineouts, again, in a good attacking position. You mentioned, like Rumball knock on, right? There's definitely other opportunities for the Arrows to put points on the board that they left empty-handed, right? And unfortunately, like, despite the fact that you can look at it as a positive that they doubled their try output on the year, It's also um, maybe a little bit of a negative that doubling the try output on the year is scoring 3 tries, right? So um, the execution in the 22 is something that I think improved a lot during this game because they scored 3 tries off possessions in the 22, which is something that hasn't been happening earlier this year. We talked about in the last episode how 2 of their tries were like long distance tries, right? Um, so I liked that. I really think though, man, like the game was, to me, it was close, right? Like both teams set piece was pretty even, different points and times, different teams had an edge, right? Malcolm and Brody were controlling the territory. They were winning a lot of kicking battles and stuff. Right. Both teams were making tackles, both teams were doing well at the breakdown. And I think it's one of those things we talked about. And to me, the story, and I wrote this on like Rouge Rugby, the story to me in this game, I think, is just it's the lineup and the Arrows injury situation over the course of this entire year, right? Because you look at, obviously, you mentioned the 3 players that the Arrows lose before the game even starts. Whole lineup has to shift around. You only have 5 guys on the bench. Then 2 players go down early in the first half, right? So now your bench is down to just 3 guys for the last 50 minutes of the game, right? Which is already tough.
Yeah.
And then you look at kind of what Utah does, right? Where it's like Utah kind of had some wholesale changes in the 52nd minute. They held a couple guys back until like the 70th, but a lot of guys come in the 52nd minute, which is just 10 minutes before Brody scores a try to take the lead. But if you look at who, like the players that were making an impact in the final 15 minutes of the game, Paul Lasike comes on and, has a huge run where, follows up Lance Williams, who absolutely obliterated Sam Malcolm on the way there. And then Lasike follows that up, runs over Brendan Black, right? Scores a try in the corner, dragging a couple arrows himself. Later, Wahunga Havili, he scores a try. He was a sub off the bench. The Lasike coming on, Lasike went to center, so that strategic decision moves Cruze over to the wing, right? So because of that sub, Cruze is on the wing to make that nasty one-handed catch on that Hodgson crossfield kick. McLeod comes in at scrum half. He's getting the Warriors quick ball. It's how they're able to score 3 tries in like 4 minutes, right? As he's upping the pace a lot. Arrows are constantly on the back foot, not really having enough time to react. You have a guy like Olive Khalifi is making, every time he touches the ball, he's gaining meters. He's breaking the gain line. He's breaking down the Arrows defense. Bailey Wilson had like a 60-meter run off a line break, right? Yeah. It felt like almost every player that Utah brought on made some sort of impact in the second half. Or sorry, not even in the second half, but in that final 15 minutes. Right. And
yeah,
and I think you can kind of sit here and look at it as like the game was pretty even until the Utah bench took over. And, obviously guys like Hodgson and, Cruze, McEnany, they were all really big at the end of the game too. And they played the full 80 minutes. Right. But like, it just seemed like the guys that did come off the bench did provide a lot of energy for the Utah Warriors. Right. And, there was no time for the Arrows to recover from that. Cause it's like, it's kind of one of those things. It's like they hit so fast. Especially like the 3 tries in the middle, the Joe Mono, the Mika Cruze, and the Havili try basically being like 4 minutes apart from each other. Yeah. Right. And it's like, you don't have time to recover from that at all. Right. And, it's one of those games. It's like you start off shorthanded and then immediately, and then before the half hour mark is up, you lose 2 more players. Yeah. Right. And like, I think that's kind of the unfortunate thing too. Right. I think, like you kind of look at the Arrows, who I think I think a lot of players did play well in this game, as we kind of briefly touched on already. But it's like, I think the Warriors, it's like you kind of look what they did in the second half too. It's like, okay, like we're gonna, like, let's attack the wings, right? Attack the younger guys,
Yeah.
right? You had Mono got put in a 1-on-1 with Brendan Black. We know how that ended. You had like, Williams and Lasike bearing down on, I think, Oideman and Black too for a try, right? It's like they went after, they went after some of the younger players, and I mean, Cruze was getting the ball a lot, and they went after Edie in the middle of the pitch too, right? It's like, hey, this guy's playing out of position. Like, let's go at like, right? Cruze had like the most care. Cruze and Fisher were great in this game. They had a lot of carries. They also had a lot of tackles, right? Like Edie and Goodall were I thought Goodall played really well in this game as a little sidebar, but like that's Utah looked like they were kind of attacking the areas in the Arrows lineup. We're like, all right, you got an 18-year-old fullback. Let's see what he can do. Like,
I mean, credit to Utah as in, they don't need to take 3 players off their bench to even it out. They're doing everything within their limits. And
well, that's the thing, right? Is like, we can talk about the Arrows injury situation, and I can tell you how many MLR teams care.
Yeah,
right? It's one. It's the Toronto Arrows. That's the only team that cares. Like, it's right now, especially, you want to know, especially like, well, I can tell you one team that does not care is the Dallas Jackals.
Oh, good. No.
Who are probably like this is going to be their best chance. They might be looking at this like it's their best chance for a win, and it's not necessarily that the Arrows are bad, but it's like, like you got to be like, oh man, like they're devastated by injuries. They got, they have forwards playing in the centers. They have, they have, like, I mean, how many, like, you have really Rutten has only played 16 minutes. Stevenson and Black all making their MLR debuts, right, in this game and stuff, right? Like, it's obviously, and then not to mention again Edie, right? So like,
it's
like teams are going to be looking at it, and unfortunately too, it's like, Utah may have showed a tiny little blueprint right now, right? Which is
this is how you beat the Arrows.
Yeah, put some big name players like whatever your team's equivalent to a Lasike or like Khalifi is on the bench, and then
bulldoze them on the wings.
Yeah, exactly, right. So it's like that might be, I don't know. It's the thing is, it's like, in saying this, like, the injury situation is obviously bad. You do have to find a way to deal with it. So the Arrows are dealing with it, and like I said, it's like the first way they deal with it is they try to call up Brendan Black and Hank Stevenson, who Stevenson had to come in early, but obviously Brendan Black, the youngest player to ever start an MLR game, thrown into the fire, pure just sink or swim situation. And it's like, he's got to know going into this game that he's got to play fullback, which is one of the most important positions on the field. Last line of defense against a very high-powered offensive team, right? And that there's no help coming. There's nobody on the bench for you to that's going to come in and play for you, right?
If you get injured, then
dude, if any back got injured, I don't even know. Like, we would have had like Isaac Salmon on like at fullback. I don't know. Like, I don't know what you would have done.
No,
but it's like, and that's the thing. I still don't know what the Arrows are going to do. We'll talk a little bit. They made some signings today, but like, you kind of take that, and it's like, and I thought, man, he kicked well. He fielded balls. He fielded kicks well. He made good. I think for the most part, he made very good decisions with the ball, with and without the ball. I know, like, he ended up on the wrong end of that mono step. So like that's unfortunate, but he was in a very, like, I mean, he was in a good position, and sometimes you just got to give credit to the other team. That was a really nice step. Like, not many guys are making that tackle. Not many guys in MLR are making that tackle anyways. With that kind of space and time and the execution that Joe Mono put into that, one of his 3 tries, right? So, like, I thought he played really well. Stevenson came in, really good in the line out. His, like, super steady hands, making tackles, hitting rucks. That was great. Owen Rutten, the leading the team in tackles, immense work rate on the ruck arrivals and everything. That was really good. He had one real nice hit that just flat out caused a knock on. Ball just popped right out of the Warriors player's hands. I don't remember which Warrior it actually was, unfortunately, but that was a really nice hit. He's creating turnovers. He looks like he fit right in as an MLR starter. And I think right now it's the Arrows injury situation is obviously a nightmare. It's the second year in a row that this has happened, which makes it even more of a nightmare, really. I don't know. I think watching the game, I'm kind of man, I know if you look at the score, it looks, if you just looked at the score and didn't watch the game, it looks like they got their ass kicked, which isn't really true, at least for the first 65 minutes of this game. But it's really encouraging to kind of see guys like Rutten and Black and Stevenson being able to step up and come in to play an MLR game, right? Not just for the Arrows, but as a Canadian rugby fan, it's that's kind of exciting. It's these, maybe these will be guys, they continue on their trajectory, right? It's they could be national team players one day, right? Which is a bit of a positive, but I think for right now, man, I don't know, we got Dallas on Saturday, and they have to be chomping at the bit looking at the Arrow situation and obviously their own situation. Every game they set a record for the longest winless streak, which is made even worse because they never won. So it's not even just a winless streak. It's you got guys that have been on that team for 2 years that have not won a game since 2020 or 2021. It's
2022. They've only been playing since 2022.
Well, yeah, they got played in 2022, but some of the guys on the team were in the MLR, and the last time any of those players would have won a game would have been 2021.
Okay.
Some of those guys have never won an MLR game, as you just pointed out. So that's obviously going to be, this. I don't know. It's weird. It's Dallas, obviously, they played quite well against New England on the weekend, right? I think kind of shocked a lot of people by how close they kept to that game, right? Despite the fact that they didn't score a try.
Yeah. We'll get to that game in a bit. But it does, I agree with you with the injury list, because especially after last year, there was prayers and blood sacrifices of saying can we please not have to get 9 scrum halves this season? And it seems as the only thing that answered that prayer was a monkey's paw, which was okay, everyone else on the team is injured.
That's the thing. It's you kind of look at least when the lineup's posted, it's 3 scrum halves are in the lineup, at least when it was posted initially. I mean, obviously Will Grant was made unavailable between the time that the lineup was posted and the start of the game. But it's it's wild, because it's even last year where the Arrows maybe had to get creative with signing scrum halves, getting Riley DiNardo to come back from Poland, getting Gordy McCrory to come over, right, and pull Jamie McKenzie out of the TSN booth. And everything that they did to try to get a healthy scrum half on the field. At no point did they ever not field 23 guys.
Yeah.
Right. This is kind of wild. This is wild. That they only had 20 guys in this game, right? And it kind of showed at the end of the game. But
definitely, yeah.
But and like you said, it's I'm not even sure, they have that, and it's they still use I believe they still used all 8 of their international slots in this game too.
Yes, they did.
Right, they did. They still used up all 8 of them. It's one of those things where it's you can't even sit here and what would you do to the lineup? You're just kind of okay, who's healthy? And if we have 23 healthy guys, that's the lineup right now. is what it kind of feels like, right? Like there's no and it's like, and as I think probably as it showed by Mitch Eady playing center, who actually did quite well.
Yeah.
He did quite well. I think Goodall kind of helped like hide him a little bit. Because Goodall had a lot of carries and meters and stuff in this game, right? I think the Arrows kind of really used Goodall as like the anchor for like the attack, which they should, because you got three super young players and a forward in your back line. So go to the one guy that's a bit of a veteran back. It makes sense. It's such, I don't know. It's such a makeshift situation. And it's like, yeah, like, I don't know. All I'm sitting here thinking right now is before the game on Saturday is I hope at least a couple guys are healthy. Like no
Yeah.
matter what position they play, like just get some like healthy bodies in the lineup, right? And it's every time you see a player go down now, it's kind of like, you get nervous, be like, oh, like I hope they are okay, because the Arrows really can't they can't afford to lose anybody. But we got some reinforcements coming.
Yeah, that is true. We have been blessed with the announcement that the Arrows have signed from Canada Sevens Deshaun Bowen and Dawson Fatorik.
Nice.
So listed on the Toronto website, it does have Bowen listed as a winger and Dawson listed as a center. And they will be with the Arrows for the remainder of the season. And from America's Rugby News, we actually have a trade to announce, and that is Kyle Bailey has been traded to Old Glory DC in exchange for salary cap consideration for the 2024 season. Now, Kyle Bailey, as we know, wasn't announced as part of the squad for 2023, but his player rights remained with the Arrows, and DC had their own injury problems with Stan South having a season-ending injury, so they need a lock in place, and Kyle Bailey was available. So he's heading down, and, hoping to see Bailey get some time out. So he had 10 caps for the Arrows because he did have a bit of an injury bug himself last season. And he scored one try, and that was against his former team, Nola Gold. So when DC comes to Toronto just before the Victoria Day weekend, Kyle, look, you've scored against a former team once. If you do it again, it's not as interesting. So you don't need to do it. Don't worry about it. But yeah, anything that has more Canadians playing in MLR or in any form of professional rugby, I'm all for. And of course, we mentioned last week that Mike Shepherd tied Paul Cellini. So this week, when he was announced, he became the most capped Arrow at 51 caps. We won't be mentioning it every week when he gets like another cap.
Yeah, he's gonna set the record for every single game he plays now. So
exactly. So, but we'll be expecting him to be making 75 caps, 100 caps. Yeah. So, Mike, you're the one who promised us 5 years of the MLR Shield.
5 championships in a row. Hey, this is still year one. This is still year one. I believe. You know what is kind of funny about this? This is this. Kyle Bailey is such a good rugby player, and this is the second time he's been traded for like nothing.
Did the Arrows?
Yeah, because the Arrows
trade anything for him?
Yeah, a second round pick.
Oh yeah,
it was a second round pick, and now he's getting traded for salary cap consideration.
I will also point out that it was confirmed on the MLR trade wire that this trade transaction was done on the 22nd of March. So just before all these new injuries came into the team. So unfortunately, But then again, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes of like what gets signed, what gets approved, and how long it takes to come to light. But it is what it is, and we just have to move on with it. All right. So, speaking of DC, let's talk about the other MLR games this weekend. So, we had DC hosting NOLA Gold. NOLA started off very strong, but DC were like starting to come back, ultimately fell short in that goal. The final score DC 17, NOLA 20. Then we had the closest encounter of the weekend. That was New England versus Dallas. When I was listing the Canadians in both teams, I said, will Dallas cause the upset and finally get that first win? And in all honesty, they definitely had that threat in them because, they were the first points on the board. I've got to admit, New England have not been as impressive at home this season. I mean, they've had their first game against DC and they very nearly lost that game only by a few points. And now they've only been able to hold off Dallas by 1 point. The final score: New England 10, Dallas 9.
Win's a win.
Yeah, I know a win's a win, but obviously you don't want to be giving away all those try bonus points and the losing bonus points because it may come back to bite you in the postseason. But yeah, Dallas was very close to getting a try right at the end, but the line out wasn't straight. Penalty to New England, and then they just wound down the clock until it was done. All right, we head to Texas, where Houston were hosting Atlanta. And if anyone had Houston going for one of their teams to make the playoff, this was definitely a game to prove it. Scoring, I believe, the try bonus point within the first 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Atlanta able to fight back into the game in the second half. But as you said last year, Derek, the best form of defense is to have a whopping lead for you to catch up.
True.
Yeah, the final score, Houston 40, Atlanta 28. And then we had the only Sunday game of the season, which was Chicago versus Seattle. Again, a game in which one team tried to get a huge lead. And just at halftime, the score was Chicago 5, Seattle 27. Only 3 tries, though, and just getting for the boot from Alatima. Then the match was delayed due to lightning in the area before it was unfortunately cancelled. And because at least 50% of the game was played, according to MLR rules, that means that the score stands. So the final score is Chicago 5, Seattle 27. Yeah. Thunderbolt and lightning. Very, very frightening.
They are.
Other MLR news that's come out this week is that we have our 2023 City kits revealed. So there's been... a lot of teams have new kits. I believe Dallas, Houston, and Seattle are just recycling the kits that they wore last season, which is a bit disappointing. But, when 3/4 of the league have different options, then I'm like, yeah, we'll go for it. Derek, you've taken a look at these. Which one stands out to you as your favorite?
Oh, it is without a doubt the Chicago Hounds 90s Bulls throwback homage jerseys. It's easy. Like, I don't know, like this is the easiest call to possibly make. There's a lot of kits that I think, like, I really like these initiatives of MLR kind of going with it's kind of like the reverse retro thing in the NHL. You get like the league wide, like everybody gets a unique jersey to wear for like one game. And, I really like the initiative, auction them off, hopefully make some money. But yeah, it's the Hounds Bulls jerseys are by far the best ones on here. It almost has me thinking of like what other sports teams I want to see the MLR teams pay homage to with specialty jerseys. I don't know if you have any, but I've started thinking of a couple, but maybe I'll hear what you think was the best jersey first before I just spitball my marketing ideas for all the owners around the league.
I really like the Chicago jersey as well. I think the only thing I would change is that it seems as though they're having the Hounds logo or the white hound of the Hounds logo on the collar flap. Yeah. And I think they should just have that logo on where the logo regularly goes.
No, because it's got to look like the NBA jersey. So you get the NBA logo, and then you got Bulls written on the jersey, right? Like that's what they're going for. Like that's where it is on the Chicago Bulls jersey.
I get that, but at the same point, I'm like, just because it just feels like empty without having that logo or like just having that space empty. But anyway, that's just me.
I wonder if they're going to put the numbers underneath the Hounds though, because that's what the basketball jersey would look like. None of the jerseys, the jerseys didn't have numbers on it, did they? When they revealed it, did they have numbers? They might have.
No,
I don't know.
But the thing, I think they will have numbers. We should also mention that these are all being auctioned off. There's the match worn variety, and there's also the signed kit version, which has each kit signed by every member of the respective MLR team, and those are available on dash.io, I believe.
So which one's your favorite though? Instead of critiquing my favorite, which one's your favorite?
So I do like the Arrows one, and I think that may just be because I'm a fan of Metallica and it reminds me of the Ride the Lightning album. But I'm also going to say I think New England's is really good as well, and I think because it reminds me of their St. Patrick's Day jersey from last year, where there was like that solid green and it was really crisp. The blue works really well. They have the lighthouse, very artistic. They have the waves at the lower torso and on the sleeves, and the logo doesn't interfere. It actually works quite well. Sorry, the sponsor logo, I should say. I think that's a great choice. And I also think Nola Gold, just for being like, you know what, we're going to be super artistic.
I love Nola.
Taste be damned.
I love it. I love Nola's is great. I like Houston's. I think it's the same as last year's. I still like that though. Like none of them are. I don't get Utah's. It's not that it's ugly. I just don't I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. I'm not from Utah. Maybe there's some local tie. Like I just don't get it.
Even though they've like shown the actual version, I'm not a fan of New York's. Just I know
it's not bad.
But this is my reasoning.
It's a Subway thing, right?
Yeah, but this is a team who's got a city jersey, whose hashtag is change the skyline, and they have nothing of the city skyline on their jersey.
Yeah.
I think that's a missed opportunity in my opinion.
Yeah, that could be. Some of the skyline, I don't know. I think the skyline things are I'm very hit and miss on the skyline. I like the way Seattle does it, although I'm kind of disappointed that they have 2 black jerseys now, considering they do have a really cool color scheme. San Diego's like they're all generally pretty good. I think the Hounds one's the best. I think I would love to see more teams do like random other sport jersey homages. I know a while back the at the time rugby, I don't know, were they Rugby United New York? I can't remember. They've changed their name 26 times. I don't know. But like they wore like a Yankees jersey basically for a little bit. Which I kind of hated at the time, but now I kind of think it's kind of funny. I don't know. Maybe the Hounds just pulled this off a little bit cleaner than they did.
Yeah, I think the issue with that New York jersey was it was their regular jersey.
Yeah, it was the regular jersey. Yeah, that was
admittedly it was also for the 2020 season, so it wasn't.
Yeah, like I think like the Hounds jersey right now, I'm like that is super cool, but I know part of that is like because they're wearing it once. Right. I would love to see like other teams do that too. Like I think I think we gotta get the Toronto Arrows to follow like the Hounds footsteps here. And we got to get the Arrows. Initially, I wanted to say a Leaf jersey, but then I'm kind of like, that's probably just going to be a big arrow logo and then like a couple stripes. Maybe not that cool, right? But I think because the Hounds kind of did the 90s Bulls, we got to get the Arrows to do like a 90s Raptors jersey. Like the old school, the purple, the early pre-Vince Carter days with the dinosaur. But instead of the dinosaur, make it Archie carrying a rugby ball. And then, I don't know. That's what I want to do. bill you can put the check in the mail.
Yeah, we'll take
yeah.
we won't actually. We
we
won't take
need.
anything because it's for charity.
We can take something. We can take something. We're not the greatest human beings. We can take something.
Terrible.
I'm not. Yeah, we can take something.
Anyway, if you are thinking on bidding on any of these jerseys, not just the Arrows ones or the Hounds ones, you can go to dashapp.io and you can bid on either the match worn jerseys of any of the Matchday 23 players, or you can bid on the jersey auction for an authentic full team signed jersey. The starting bid is $200.
Which jersey do you want? For any player in the league, which one do you want?
Oh, it's going to be definitely an Arrows player. I think Lucas Rumble, Mike Shepherd. I think that's a reasonable one to go for. But obviously, I have to find out which number they are.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I do have a problem with that. I was gonna say that's what I was gonna say. I want Fabian Goodall's no number.
Oh well, then you just go on the just go on the for the full team signed jersey one.
Yeah, right? No, I want Goodall specifically with no number back.
I don't know. Maybe these jerseys will actually
maybe
fit
they will.
And
you know what? I did kind of have a side point on that because obviously, this is a super weird situation for the air. Yeah. Like I don't know what's going on with the jersey sizing. I think like in part of this though, like they obviously had to rejig the lineup due to a couple, as we mentioned, a few guys getting hurt between the lineup coming out. I think given the Arrows' current situation with everybody wearing really weird numbers anyways, once the lineup is posted publicly, no matter what happens, those players' numbers should be locked in for the game. Because you had like Rutten changed his number from 12 to 6. Shepherd ended up going from like 5 to 2, and then Flesh went from 6 to 4.
I don't know, man. I think we can just leave the logistics to the team and we'll like see what happens.
Yeah, but it's like as a new fan, though,
the team name is the player name isn't listed. It's just like the number given. So when the Arrows announce the squad and they say like, oh, this person's wearing number 2 and this person's wearing 18 instead of this number, then you know which one to go for. So
but you don't. But in this game though, you wouldn't have because they all switched their numbers before kickoff, anyways. Right? Yeah. Like even with the Arrows, like little like Arza, but he's gonna wear number 5, but like a whole bunch of those players changed their numbers between the Arrows announcement and kickoff. So if you were a new fan and you wanted to like, hey, I really like that play that player made, and you went to check it, the numbers that they were wearing didn't necessarily match the list that was put out.
The thing as well is that the bid doesn't end before the game. It'll end, I think, like a week afterwards. So you know, you've got time to work it out and decide.
Oh, I just meant for like in general marketing on like a week by week basis. It's like because you got to make it accessible for new fans. And if new fans and it's like if everybody's constantly switching jersey numbers and stuff, it's like I don't know. I just think you got to make it as easy as possible.
I think you're making it too big of a deal. But as in with this week, I think like the circumstances and just like the issues supersede the number call. But you know, going forward, I don't think anyone's intentionally trying to mislead anyway. So let's move on from action in North America to talk about a North American team currently in Europe playing an African team, as the women's 15 played against the women box in Madrid. And now, before we even begin this match, Canada currently ranked 4th in the world. South Africa are not even in the top 10. So you could kind of tell where this was going. And then, within the first 7 minutes of the game, South Africa were reduced to 14 when their flanker, Katha Jacobs, following a video review, received a red card for a high tackle. So, you know, not a great time if you're a South African women's rugby fan. I'll just put it this way. At halftime, Canada led 35-0. And yeah, so it was a pretty pretty damning scoreline. I think 10 tries scored by Canada. South Africa were able to get one in, so they did have something on the scoreboard. But yeah, final score, Canada 66, South Africa 7. Tries scored by Menin, Poulin, Deschamps, Faris, Bermudez, Shell, Fatio, and Gonzalez. 6 conversions by De Goody and 2 conversions by Taylor. Now, the thing is that, scoreline on paper looks fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It is fantastic as well. But at the same time, there were a lot of errors going on from this team. Now, in all fairness, Kevin Ray did say that there were errors, but they've only really had, in his words, 2.5 practices. And so he's very proud of them. And then, so part of me is a bit, miffed of like, oh, why did you do that when you could have like either offloaded it or taken it into contact? But then at the other side of looking at it, I'm also like, okay, you're leading 35-0 at halftime. If there's any game in which you can experiment and try out new things and it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out, it's this one. So I'm like, cool, okay, you've tried something, it didn't work, that's perfectly acceptable. When you play the USA next week, don't do that, if that's all right, please.
Or if you go up 35-0, do it. If you do it again, yeah, why not? I thought this game was great. I mean, obviously, like you said, just a couple practices going into it. It's obviously, a bit of a favorable matchup, right? But as we've kind of talked about it in the past, sometimes you need to, sometimes like the mark of like really good teams, sometimes it's like if especially like in Toronto, Leaf fans will know it's like, it's really annoying watching the Leafs say lose to last place teams in the league. Right. Yeah. And it's like, if you're a good team and you go up against a team that you're much better than, it's like, it is a good sign to see you absolutely bury the team that you're way better than. Right. So I think that's definitely a positive. Really great to see Fancy Bermudez, her debut, couple of tries, couple really nice tries too, some good steps, big moments. She was involved in the setup of a couple other tries too, right? So like that was great to see. That was an unreal 15's debut performance from her. And a lot, the forwards were great, the backs were great. Canada really, really took advantage of the fact that South Africa had a red card super early in the game. There was space on the wings, and they had a field day with it. Right, so that was brilliant to see. Poulin had a couple of tries. Ferries had a try down the wing too. Right, like that was brilliant. There was space there. Canada attacked that space repeatedly. So that was excellent to see from that. Love the fact that all of the kicks were done by forwards. This is my favorite part about this team. Not just Sophie De Goody, aka the greatest rugby player on the planet, but also Emma Taylor, a lock after De Goody was subbed off, right? Lock Emma Taylor slotting 2 conversions for obviously the best kicking pack in world rugby at the moment. And that's obviously great to see. It's one of the funnest things about watching the Canadians women's team is the forwards. We've spent the entire podcast talking about Mitch Eady playing center, and Canada here is just having forwards, number 8s and locks just drilling kicks off the tee for fun. So it's always an entertaining sight, and they had plenty of practice off the tee in this game because they kept rolling over the try line. So
it just feels really strange, the juxtaposition of watching a Canada landslide in the morning and then watching the Canadian team of Toronto underneath a landslide in the afternoon. What a strange sport this is, but
Yeah.
By Jove, we love it. Anyway, let's get on to our predictions for round 7 of MLR. As we have first Utah versus New England. Derek, who do you have?
First of all, is this the first 6-week game?
This is the first 6-week
we've
game
had in a while?
since round 1.
Since round 1. Oh, all right, man. Let's buckle up. Utah, New England, man. I think I gotta go. You know what? It depends. Is Emerson Pryor gonna play?
Dude, we never know the lineups when we announce these.
If Emerson Pryor plays, I'm gonna take Utah because Emerson Pryor hasn't lost yet. Utah should learn this fact. 3 and
all right.
So
all right.
I'm gonna let's
say they are gonna pick Pryor because they need to have
Pryor. If they pick Pryor, Utah wins.
All right.
He hasn't lost yet. Utah's 3-2, and Pryor's played in all 3 of the wins, but he hasn't played in the 2 losses. So Utah's got to learn that.
Yeah. So Utah obviously did very well at home. However, I think New England, for some weird reason this season, are better when they play away than when they play at Veterans Memorial Stadium. So for that reason, I'm going to go with New England. Okay, next up we have Dallas versus Toronto. Interesting fact, Dallas is one of the few teams that have yet to take a bye week.
Well, yeah, that is kind of bizarre. The schedule is
no
so
rest
weird.
till they get a win.
Yeah, the schedule is so yeah, exactly. You don't get to rest until you win a game. They might lose during their bye week at this rate though. So but yeah, let's go with we have to go with Toronto. This might be a dangerous game though, but we both know we're picking Toronto anyways.
Yeah, that's true. Chicago continue hosting through the storm as they host Houston. So who do you have for that one?
I think you got to go with Houston. Houston's looked like one of the better teams in the league this year, right? So
yeah, I got to admit, Chicago, Houston. Well,
yeah.
if you look at how both teams played in the first half of their respective games, Houston was able to get a try bonus point, and Chicago was only able to get 1 try. And I would say for the full 80, but I
was going to say, Chicago only played 40 minutes though.
Yeah. So. Speaking of only playing 40 minutes, we have Seattle, and they are making the trip to NOLA.
I'm taking NOLA. NOLA's on absolute fire right now.
NOLA is like exceptional, and part of me wants to pick NOLA, but also I don't. We've just picked a game in which we've said who's going to be the same. We've just had the Toronto game as well, so I'm going to be different. I'm going to say Seattle going to extend their winning run. They're going to go and get the W over NOLA. Now we have New York versus Atlanta. So I'm on the fence. So New York will have just come back from a bye week, so they'll be a bit more refreshed. Atlanta not doing well. But then again, New York before the bye week had a heavy loss. So
New York's not doing that great this season, man.
Yeah, but then again, I don't think Atlanta are doing too peachy either. It's really hard to determine like who's going to go
East, over. I was going to say the East is kind of weird right now because you have New England that's 4-1. So like clearly the best team in the East, at least as far as your win-loss record.
Yeah.
NOLA is the only team that's played 6 games. They're at 3-3. So they're sitting at just at 500. The rest of the conference is below 500.
Yeah.
Right. So you got 3 teams in DC, Atlanta, and New York that are all 2-3. Right. So, which I mean is a good sign for the Arrows, really, because even though they've struggled, like they're not that far back of anybody, because no one other than New England has really pulled away at all this season. Right. And, everybody's got a game in hand on NOLA. So we'll think what you do with that. But like, yeah, New York hasn't been that great. Atlanta hasn't been that great. DC's been all right. Like it's kind of a weird conference right now.
Yeah, I mean, so New York, they lost the game against New England, 18-33, and then they got stomped by NOLA. But then at the same time, Atlanta, they didn't do too well against Houston, and then they also had the loss to San Diego as well. And so, yeah, both teams having 2 losses before this game. It does feel like a coin flip at this point, but the Toonie's retired for this season. He wants to see how we play
retired out. Or we just forgot about it?
They're taking the year out to recover from injuries and assess options outside of rugby, and but they've expressed interest in coming back next season. I will go with the team that has had a extra week's worth of recovery. I'm going to go with New York.
You know what? I'll take Atlanta just for the sole reason that Matt Heaton put up absolute video game numbers in the game last week, and I feel like he should be rewarded for that. He had 24 tackles and 33 ruck arrivals, which is just monstrous performance from him. So I'll pick him just on the backs of that.
All right, and we have the final fixture of San Diego versus DC. So SD versus DC. San Diego currently 4 wins to 1 loss. DC 2 wins and 3 losses. Who do you have, Derek?
I'm going to take San Diego. San Diego at home. They've been looking very, very good all year. And also they're coming off a bye as well. So rest it up.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'll go with San Diego as well.
Oh, I'm glad I convinced you on one of these.
Fair enough. So those are the fixtures for round 7 of MLR. Utah versus New England, Dallas versus Toronto, Chicago versus Houston, NOLA versus Seattle, New York versus Atlanta, and San Diego versus DC. And you can watch all those games on the Rugby Network, and Arrows fans can watch their games on TSN, tsn.ca, TSN Plus as well. And if you want to watch any other rugby this weekend, then we have some good news for you. The World 7 Series returns, this time in Hong Kong, and you can watch that on CBC and CBC Gem. The Canada match against the United States, which will form the first match of the Pacific 4 Series, should be available on ferugby.tv. It's a free way to watch the games in Spain. You will need to sign up for an account, but as I said, it is free. And the Champions and Challenge Cup returns for the round of 16, and that is available on epcrugby.tv. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out more as well as written pieces on our new website, rougerugby.ca. You can also find our podcast on Spotify for podcasters, and Apple Podcasts. We also have a YouTube channel at the Rouge Rugby with episodes of the podcast, as well as extra interviews with players and coaches. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay up to date with all our videos. We are also available across social media, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, all at the Rouge Rugby. Derek, where can the fine people find you on social media?
At Brissette the Jet across all social media networks.
And you can find me across social media at Hardman, spelled H4RDMAN. Well, that's where we're going to end this episode. Derek, thank you for joining me once again, and thank you all for joining us for the Rouge Rugby podcast, where we focus on real Canadian rugby. We hope you can join us again next time.